Good morning, everybody. It's so great to be amongst professionals who are thinking about the same problems and challenges that I know I am. It hasn't been that long that we've been talking about things like employment brand, value proposition, mobile apply, candidate experience. These are all relatively new things with no clear-cut roadmap of how to tackle them. So first, oops, just realized my slides are not up. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Thanks. Sorry, technical challenges.
Are you hitting this button here?
Got it. Okay, thanks. So we'll start with a little bit about me. How many people here are from New York? Awesome. I'm from a place nearby called Park Slope. It's in Brooklyn. The reason I love telling people that I grew up in Brooklyn, I live outside DC now. A lot of people haven't been to New York. And when I tell people I'm from Brooklyn, I have to admit, I really enjoy the reaction I get. I often get a cocked head, a strange look. I'm not quite sure exactly what that's all about. I think it's a little bit of a perception issue. They imagine more this being Brooklyn. And maybe they expect me to talk or act a little bit more like Spike Lee. I'm not quite sure. But I know that this perception issue and the awareness issue is something that a lot of our companies struggle with as we try to change people's perceptions or even bring awareness to a company that they have not heard of at all. Sometimes that awareness is just very limited. They know about one product that we sell or used to sell. They know a version of us that's very outdated, or maybe they're not aware of us at all. So today I'm going to talk about how we use marketing at ADP to overcome this awareness challenge. Have you noticed that that recruitment has become a lot like marketing? Maybe it always has been. If you think about it, everything that we're doing today to drive people to our career site to apply is kind of like a modern day version of placing a job advertisement in a newspaper. The way that job seeker search is more different than ever, and it's going to continue to be different as demographics shift. I've heard that millennials will be about 50% of the workforce by 2020, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. So most of us are at various stages of building our brand for our companies. We're building assets around our value propositions to give recruiters the right message, the right materials at the right time. We've had to become much more sophisticated about the way that we position what's in it for the candidate. This is actually a campaign that we're just about to roll out, and I'll tell you more about how we got here in a moment. So as Ryan mentioned, I started in marketing. I grew up being so fascinated by advertising. I would watch commercials and think, it's really neat the way that they're trying to position that to sell it to me. They're trying to take a stake at what they think is interesting to me and position their product to gain my interest or my engagement with their brand. So I went to school for marketing, learned advertising and PR, and eventually became a marketing manager for a very dinosaur early ATS. And we would do things that would bring me to learn about recruiting. We would go to the big industry conferences. We would sponsor training programs just to co-brand ourselves with thought leaders. And as I got to know the recruiting side, I started to suspect that things were a little more interesting on this side, the recruiting side, versus the technology. So I made the leap. I cut my teeth in agency recruiting, was recruiting full desk, various types of positions, technology, et cetera, you name it. And I pretty quickly realized that recruiting was helping people get jobs, but it was really also selling people on an opportunity. Because every candidate goes through this journey before they join a company. Nobody wakes up one day and just starts a new job. This is one of the biggest decisions we make in our adult life. There's buying a home, there's choosing a spouse, and there's choosing a career. So we all go from unaware of a position or an opportunity. Then we become aware of that opportunity. We become considering that opportunity once we're engaged with it. And if all goes well on both ends, as we know, we're hired. So every hire has gone through this, and most companies are trying to figure out how to approach this challenge with marketing. So before I tell you a little bit about my awareness with ADP, before I joined, I want to get a sense of the room. What is your awareness of ADP? Has anyone heard of ADP? OK, good. Has anyone an ADP client? Awesome. Thank you for being clients. How many people think it would be easy to recruit entry-level people for ADP? All right, you're smarter than me. I thought it was going to be really easy when I came to ADP, like a piece of cake. I'd hired enterprise architects and complicated HR positions, you name it. Like, how easy could it be to hire entry-level people? So this was my perception of ADP. Payday. I'd seen it on my paycheck since I was a teenager. I didn't even know why it was there. I'd seen automatic data processing on my paycheck for decades. But when I called these entry-level people to try to gain their interest in ADP, I didn't get very much of a response. We'll go into that in a minute. So then I joined ADP, and I met ADP. Here was this amazing culture, top-ranked training programs, a benefits package that would make any HR person weep with joy. A sales team that I was hired to recruit offered really motivating incentives, a base salary, lots of different incentives, 3 incentive trips a year to very cool places like Monte Carlo. And when friends asked me where I worked, I told them that I worked at the greatest story never told. We're in more than 125 countries with 60,000 employees, the largest provider of human capital management solutions in the world, business outsourcing solutions from hire to retire. Hello, here we go. Sorry about that. So did this happen to you where you work too? You maybe had a perception or no perception of a company that you worked for, and then you went to work there and realized they had a great culture. I suspect that a lot of you are here because you felt that culture and you wanted to provide it a platform, whether as a recruiter, a director, or in brand directly. But again, when I started with ADP, my role was just to help hire these entry-level salespeople. So not just anyone, mind you. I know entry-level people have to have a good mix of business savvy, personality, experience, have that ready-to-conquer-the-world attitude. But when I called these recent grads, here's what happened. Nothing. I would hear things like, no, thank you. Not just on the phone, mind you, where I would get the click, but in career fairs. I would ask people, what do you want to do after you graduate? And they would say, not work for ADP. And this really shocked me, because I knew the other ADP. I knew the amazing ADP. I knew the culture and the offering and the synergy between the teams. And people were really drinking the Kool-Aid. I was really drinking the Kool-Aid. So I had to figure out how to fix this. On the flip side, I had people that were knocking down our doors, applying to every single job that was open, every job. We call these our hand raisers. They want to work here. They'd heard from somebody that they trust that ADP is a good place to work and a good place to build a career. So they wanted to work here. So we had some work to do, as I'm sure a lot of you are working on similar challenges. So again, most of you had heard of ADP. So it's not an awareness issue in the business. It's really in the talent pools, the target talent pools where we try to hire, that we have this challenge. This is where recruitment has become a marketing challenge, and this is happening to companies all over the world. So we needed to build a brand. Before we could do that, first and foremost, we needed to poll the people that knew us best. We needed to listen to the experts who could tell us things that we didn't know about the people we were trying to hire, like LinkedIn. People who had the data, for things that we hire for. We hire about 10,000 people a year globally. So now let's talk a little bit more about how ADP approached this awareness cycle. But again, as I mentioned first, there's the pre-work you need to do. So before we start marketing, we need to build an authentic brand that actually represents our culture and values. Candidates are pretty savvy these days. They detect that mismatch in about a second when we say something we're not. And that actually starts with defining and building the value proposition. once defined, you can build an irresistible brand, but irresistible to the right person, not irresistible to anyone. If your message resonates with anyone, you might be missing the mark. So we arm our teams with signatures, bragging rights, videos, links to social sites, so that with a simple message every single time they reach out, they have the best opportunity to connect with someone in the way that works for them. If you think about looking in your inbox, how many emails do you ignore a day? Thousands? Probably thousands. And we're on that same receiving end. So you have to have everything, even in just the email, every time you reach out that has something that's going to connect with someone. So a little bit about our personal brand and that journey that we went on. We have values, as you probably do at your company. These are our mission, vision, and values. We have 7 core values at ADP. Every single message that we put out to the market has to include one of these values. Each person counts is in our employment value proposition. It leads every job description that we put out there. At ADP, we believe that each person counts, and that's how it starts. And then, as I mentioned, we had to find out what other people knew about the talent that we were going to hire, because we only knew what we knew. Here's an example that LinkedIn shared with us. These are their talent drivers. We noticed that of the top 5 things that salespeople care about, we offered all of those things. Work-life balance, stable job, place to build a career, good compensation. But is that really a differentiator? Not really. But we had talked to our population, the people that worked here and knew us best, and they told us that in their top 3 things that matter about working for ADP, the competitive differentiator was being able to make a personal impact. Every time I poll people or do focus groups, I hear stories about someone who went from having an idea to an action to a business practice. And we're a 60,000 person company. So that's unique for us. So this is something that we really wanted to have stand out. So we looked at, even though it's number 5, ability to make an impact was very important to this market, the sales professionals, so we customized that message to this market. And here's how it all came together. You see here, we have our value proposition, each person counts. Innovation is one of our mission and vision values. It's also how we see ourselves. But more importantly, it's how candidates need to see us, because we're not just the payroll company anymore. We're so much more than that. So this is a recent campaign we're just about to roll out. And you really see how, when you read that line, you feel how we're telling people you can make an impact here. And we include that in everything we do. So back to that funnel. We know that people go from aware to hired somehow or another. But how is ADP using marketing to engage and attract top talent? First, we have to build the awareness. Then we engage them. Once we have them engaged, or AKA marketing speak, opted in, we nurture that community. And if all goes well on both ends, we hire them. This actually looks a lot like the digital marketing strategy of pretty much any company out there, whether they're B2B, B2C. It's something along these lines, and it usually doesn't end at hired. The best companies are beyond hired, looking to provide a phenomenal candidate experience and create net promoters, not only of their candidates, but of the people that they hire. But that's a story for another day. So step 1, first we have to create awareness. We know that half of the people we reach out to, especially in the markets like technology and sales, we're not on their radar. Many of those salespeople haven't held a check in their hands. They don't know who we are. So we have on-campus efforts. We work with schools who have programs around the target demographics and talent pools that we look for. We sponsor diversity events like Alpha. We have a great media strategy. So depending on the market and the need, we've also had billboards, radio spots, anything we can do to create awareness of ADP as a place to work. It's going to be a little bit different in every market, but it's really critical. The digital media strategy I mentioned is an absolute must-have, and I would say a bare minimum, reaching job seekers where they spend time searching natively. I've got a couple of examples here of some digital media campaigns. And then also our associate, well, we call them our associate, but employee referral program. Our employee referral program drives about 27% of our hires. It all starts with word of mouth. So having that strong associate referral program to build awareness on your behalf should really be the cornerstone of your employee referral program. I would say for all but a very few companies, creating awareness is critical. We know who those companies are. We probably envy the fact that they can open a rec and get 10,000 people lining up wanting to work there, and their biggest problem is screening those people out. But I would say most of us in this room, no matter how well-known our company is, don't have that problem in the tough-to-fill positions. So, in those markets where we have great awareness, for example, El Paso, we've got a really strong name recognition. People want to work at ADP, but we can't stop there. We create awareness by continuing to support the community because community outreach is a core value at ADP, but the secondary benefit is awareness. Step 2. So now that you've created the awareness, you have a community of potential candidates who have indicated an interest in working for you. To get from engagement to nurture effectively, it's helpful to create communities either through anything from various tools of free technologies, free softwares, to enterprise-sized technologies. You might even be able to tap into your your marketing firm's marketing distribution platform for free. But this is where they can opt in to hear more about you in their particular area of interest. And now that we've gotten their intention, here's how we engage. We need to make sure, A, we're everywhere that they are. All social media platforms, all channels, wherever they are natively, we need to be there. That's where they want to talk to us. Secondly, we let the technology do the work for us. Obviously, we can't be everywhere. We're a relatively small team. So where we can, we put technology in place, opt-in programs, marketing systems. Marketing may not seem like the most exciting and innovative way to reach people. Email marketing, it's not new, it's not innovative, but it's effective. We learn a lot about how candidates search for jobs, and we use that knowledge both to SEO optimize our listings on our own site and to make sure that we're writing job descriptions in the way that job seekers are thinking about themselves. How are they searching themselves? We've all seen those acronym-heavy, sad job descriptions that, that just, aren't cutting it. We use LinkedIn job slots. We know that these are auto-targeted and thus a great way to keep our company top of mind with the talent that we care about, particularly the passive candidates. Last of all, status updates. It's a great way to keep in front of people in a passive way with information that they're not getting anywhere else. So you've built this community. So what? Maybe you've got, whatever it is, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people that have opted in to hear from you. So what? Well, it's all measurable. Every time you reach out to them, you can track that back to hire. Because we know we can't just walk into our VP's office and say, I send out email marketing. I send out a newsletter. That's exciting. So what? They want to hear how you tracked it back to hire. And with technology today, that's easy. So every single action we take, we track it back to hire. And in the meantime, these are some of the events that I'll talk about in a minute and the way that we're doing that. So again, it's not quite good enough to get awareness. The goal of these efforts is often to build a foundation with these candidates to become a follower, join one of our talent communities, so we begin the process of engagement. We engage our community on social channels, as I mentioned. We also have an internal ambassador program that I've been told is a little bit unique, so I'm going to take a moment to tell you about it. We also, so we leverage our internal ambassadors to increase the size of our marketing footprint pretty exponentially. They say it takes about 7 times to read something before it sticks. So a lot of times there's this mismatch. People apply to a position, they don't hear back, or they get the no thank you letter, and they think that you're no longer interested. That's one of the biggest challenges we face, is that mismatch of perception, candidates coming to apply, one rec, one position, no thank you letter. But as we know, sometimes the timing's off. Sometimes they apply to a position that's not quite a fit, and they're reviewed against that. We want them to keep coming back. And they're all looking for a consumerized experience. I mean, don't we all want to apply for a job the same way that you are buying a car, a home? We want to apply for a job in the same cool way that you can build a pizza on your mobile phone. So let's talk a little bit about the communication strategy. We see a lot of this out there, and it's all good. This is a great foundation. You've got PR, you've got company information, you've got the basics. You've got the kind of information that they could probably find about you if they did a Google search. And that's good. That's really good. But taking it to that next step, to be best in class, leverages a little bit of humor, a little bit of pop culture, mix in some blogs from thought leaders within your company, because you know, even beyond what a recruiter can tell them, they're really saying things that resonate with your target audience. At ADP, as I mentioned, we do things a little bit differently in how we approach social platforms. We want to make sure that we're always on, 24/7, because we understand that this is not only where people are reaching out to search for us, but trying to kind of claw past the moat of the ATS that they don't want to get stuck in. They want to know where they are in process. They want to know how the background check process is going to go. They want to have their hand held when they haven't heard back. So we've actually taken kind of a unique approach, and it works really well at ADP, and it may not work at every company. But at ADP, we started with training. Oops. I've got someone's tablet here. It's talking to me. Sorry about that. So we started with training. We created 2 certification programs. One was the basics. Now, granted, this was 2009. The basics in 2009 were, please set up a LinkedIn profile. Overcoming the objections that you might hear of people being scared of security or putting their information online, giving them basic information like using LinkedIn groups. Create a LinkedIn group. It's a great way to get a conversation started. But don't make it about your company. Make it about the function that you hire. Invite other recruiters. Get a conversation started, because that's how you truly engage. So that was our primary certification, and every recruiter that worked for us had to have this. But we understood that we had real hungry people out there who really took to social media, had a lot of value to bring. We also created an expert program. This expert program taught people how to be ambassadors for ADP, because every comment we get isn't a nice comment. We get comments from people who are frustrated. They feel like they're locked out of the system. They haven't heard back. They had a bad interview. They want to talk about it. So we needed people who could address those issues. We also needed people who were really passionate about ADP. They loved this place to work just as much as I did, and they wanted to talk about it. So we gave them a platform with some training and obviously our social media policy. We now have an advocate on every social channel every day representing ADP with a diversity of their talent pools that they hire for, geographic diversity. They're sharing information that nobody could get on our career site. And it's natively in the way that people want to talk to us. So that's worked for us. This is the last step. Nurture your talent. So you've gotten them aware. That's exciting. You've gotten them engaged. They now want to hear more from you. But for your hardest to fill positions, you've got to take it a step further. So we've got a lot of different programs that we've created to address those so that when we need to hire, we're ready. We're ready to help. So we've got this opt-in community. We've got 5 different communities based on their functional area of interest. And we're constantly hitting them with targeted emails. Our ultimate goal is to build up this community so we can continuously market to them. Once they opt in, it's drip, drip, drip. They are constantly hearing from us. Not to the point of annoyance. They can actually set the frequency that they hear from us, but we want to stay top of mind because we know that the job seeking process is a long journey. It takes a long time, and the timing has to be right. So we're able to go back and measure the success of all of these campaigns. What I love the most is actually what you'll see up here. Our email marketing hires were actually up 200% this fiscal year. We know percents can be a little bit tricky, so I'm not going to say we had 10,000 hires, but that 200% increase was a lot. We were able to go back to our executives and say, this cost-neutral program is working. It's bringing people who have considered us in the past back. The other really cool thing here is that any marketing platform is going to give you great data. You can see what people care about and what they don't. Those arrows will also show you that from the hot jobs that we put in each newsletter, we're getting anywhere from up to 1,000 people coming back to look at jobs just by putting a little newsletter together. To me, that's amazing. I would be paying a lot for somebody to do that service for me. We're doing all this stuff in-house. So little things that may not seem super innovative have a huge impact. Here's a couple of other ways that we're engaging that were really hard to attract talent. Event-based marketing. I would say for the larger scale types of hiring, maybe it's nationwide, maybe we have, 3,000 sales positions to fill. We're able to cast a very wide net, but also have a big impact through several things. Virtual career fairs are a great way to bring transitioning military back to answer their questions about getting their foot in the door. Military spouses who are geographically dispersed, we can bring them in and literally shake their hand virtually and sit them down in a conference room and answer their questions. Give them a better chance at getting their foot in the door. We also have webinars. These webinars feed live to our job career site. So they're constantly getting almost 50 views a day organically. We don't really push people here, but 50 people a day are coming to watch webinars, a forum that I would think is completely dead. But we did something a little different with webinars. We brought our hiring managers to the webinar. We let the story be about them because they're always hearing from recruiters. They want to hear at a high level, what is this position about? What is this part of the company about? They also want to know from somebody who's doing the job. What can they expect in this job? What's a day in the life going to be like? So these webinars are an amazing way to create engagement with our company, stronger engagement to our brand. So ultimately, they're going to come keep looking back for positions. They're going to find a recruiter on LinkedIn to network their way in. They're going to rise to the top because those engaged candidates that really want to work here, they're going to find their way in. My favorite part about all this is that whether it's a virtual career fair or a webinar, I now have a lead list. Because people in recruiting tend to think that marketing is like, nice to have. That's great that they're making those pretty pictures over there, but what is it bringing to me? We actually had a webinar last week for entry-level sales. This time of year, we're coming into our new fiscal year. We need to hire a lot of them. And we had a great webinar with, executives from the company talking about the opportunities, et cetera. And at the end of that, I had a lead list of 300 people that had listened to this webinar. And by the questions that they asked, there were about 90 of them, the recruiter could actually look at what question they asked and kind of figure out, is this a more seasoned salesperson? Is this a more entry-level person? They've given us their contact information, so we now know where they live and how to reach them. We can look them up on LinkedIn and see if it's a good fit. So we've got this lead list. And to me, that's power. Lastly, for our most difficult to hire people, the people who I say whose profiles you know by heart, but you just can't get them to call you back. And we all know who those people are. You've reached out to them like 3 or 4 times in 7 different ways, and they're not calling you back. Having a strong call to action is one of the best ways to get their attention. So the way that some of this looks for our hardest to fill positions would be events. We've hosted events at Cubs games, Yankee Stadium. We've had women in leadership events that we've hosted at Nordstrom's. We've approached it in various ways. I'll admit here that recruiting does most of the heavy lifting to get that lead list built and get the people in the door. And we leave memorable takeaways and a memorable brand experience, everything from the invitation that we send out that's unique and authentic to us, to the giveaways like real Major League Baseballs that we're putting in their hands with ADP. So we want them to walk out of those high value, high target individuals who want them to walk out of here really wanting to work for ADP. Here's another kind of case study that we've done in markets where you have like a finite pool of resources. So you guys know those markets where it's a small town. Your hiring managers are complaining they've interviewed everybody in that town. They're fed up with seeing the same people, not the right people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's where we tap into our biggest advocates again, our associates. And we use the associate referral program. We've created events where we give people the opportunity to bring someone back that they've referred, bring them back campaigns. After all, they know their friends best. They know the culture best. Maybe that person didn't do well in the interview. Maybe they didn't have the right level of experience. So we position this to our associates. We tell them the purpose, and we organize a mixer. It's a little more or less pressure for each person. Some people just don't interview well. Some hiring managers just don't interview well. We know how that goes. But making a more casual environment allows us to bring people back that wouldn't have been considered and therefore overlooked, because we know best that we're dealing with finite talent pools. You might want to hire X, but there's only 1,000 people that do X in this market, and 9,900 of them are doing something else, and they're happy where they are. So you need to make the most of what you have. So these have been particularly effective, I would say, from these associate referral hiring events. You show some of kind of the marketing that we do pre-event and during the event. We're able to convert about 10% of the people that come in to actually get a formal interview, and about 5% of those people hired. That's a pretty good ratio of people that were out there that knew about us, were aware, that were just sitting out there waiting to be re-engaged. So looking at how this all comes together, we've got about 200,000 followers on LinkedIn. We've got about 800,000 community members. Again, we let the technology do the work for us. Some of those members joined us as part of the application process. Some of those people are members because we've done campaigns on social media to drive people to become members, like when we open new markets. We opened a new market in Detroit recently, and the business came and said, we need a talent community campaign. And I said, we don't have a talent community in Detroit, so we have to build it. And that's not that hard to do. Very low cost pay-per-click things will give you a different call to action. It's a softer close, and you're going to be pleased with the results that you get. In any case, here are our 5 communities. We have everything from technology to advice for recent grads to our core products, things like HR, payroll, et cetera. Sales, of course, that I mentioned a lot because we hire a lot of those people. And we can see our demographics. So looking on the left, we can see how our demographics match with our talent pools. It's not bad. So what does all this get us? All this work. It's a lot of work. Granted, it's a lot of cost-neutral work and a lot of stuff that we do in-house. So that's pretty exciting when you think about cost per hire. But we're actually able to attribute that 10% of North American hires are directly related to our talent branding programs. And to me, that's a number I'm going to keep trying to build. And I think that's very attainable with the way job seekers are searching more natively. We also like to keep an eye on our talent brand index. We're at about 16% right now. I'd love to say that I'm excited about that. We're connected with about 5 million people. We're on their radar, but only 16% of them are actively engaging with us. Now, there's obviously more to the story. I'm sure some of them maybe are outside of our talent pool. They're interested in learning from ADP as a thought leader, but not considering us as an employer. So that might be a mismatch altogether. That's okay. But we want to get to about 25%. And we're taking actions like helping people know that if you share a job on LinkedIn, it gets 5 times more views. So we're taking little messages like that out to the recruiting team so that they can trickle that down to their hiring managers, because at the end of the day, they all want the best people in their positions, and they're willing to help if you ask them. So the next step in this is hired, if we think about that funnel. But I'm sure each of you could teach a class on that. So I will leave it here. My name's Jessica Steinberg, and I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Thanks for your time.